Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Saavedra here. So, Valve finally gave us another Steam Machine update. And depending on how you look at it, this is either really good news or it is a quiet delay. Maybe a little bit of both, because the Steam Machine and the Steam Frame are now being described as shipping this summer. That sounds close, and it might be close, but it also gives Valve a lot more room than people might realize. Valve originally positioned this more like an early 2026 launch, so June already felt like the edge of that window. But if they are now saying summer, this thing could land late June, July, August, or technically even in late September, depending on how far you stretch the word. So yeah, it is an update, just not the update that everyone expected. And today, I just want to go over exactly what Valve said, why the wording matters, and what I think the price is actually going to be. And one detail in this whole thing that nobody is really talking about, but that I think changes the entire story. And the wild part is how this news actually dropped. Not from a trailer, not from a price reveal, and not from a pre-order page. It came from a Steamworks post about verified labels, which is extremely Valve. So here is a short version. Valve is expanding the verified program beyond the Steam Deck. Steam Machine and Steam Frame are getting their own verified systems, and in that same update, Valve says both devices are shipping this summer. That is the main news. Now, real quick, guys, if you like this kind of honest gaming hardware breakdown, hit the subscribe button. That is the whole vibe of this channel. The Steam Machine, SteamOS, handhelds, and just keeping it real about where this stuff is actually heading. Now, in a second, I'm going to get into the price math, including a number that did not exist a year ago that completely changes how I am thinking about this launch. So stick around for that, guys. Okay, so the more interesting question is what this update actually tells us. Now, for me, the release window is the first thing to watch, because if Valve was ready to launch in June, you would think that we would have a real date by now. Maybe not, but this is Valve. But we still do not have a price. We still do not have pre-orders. We still do not have a real day on the calendar. So if Summer Games Fest come and goes without Valve saying anything bigger today, I think that we have to assume that they are pretty much giving themselves the full summer window, right? Not because the hardware is fake, not because the Steam Machine is canceled. It is because the price situation is probably still messy on their side. That is the part that I keep coming back to. Valve already raised the Steam Deck OLED pricing in the United States. The 512 went from $549 to $789, and that 1 terabyte went from $649 to $949. That is a huge jump, and Valve pretty much blamed it on memory and storage cost, plus broader logistics. Now, honestly, the data does back that up. Reporting around the announcement pretty much noted that DRAM contract prices are pretty much up roughly 170% year over year. So this is not Valve looking for an excuse. The hardware market is genuinely brutal right now. And if the Steam Deck got hit that hard, there is no way the Steam Machine is just sitting there untouched. So Valve might be waiting as long as they possibly can to see where component costs actually land before they commit to a price. That is not guessing, that is being careful with a launch they really only get to do once. But from the outside, it definitely feels like the price is the only thing that is holding this conversation hostage. And this is where I have been at for a while now. So I just do not think that this is going to land at a clean console price. So for some context, Valve had reportedly been targeting around $700 retail price earlier in development, based on the cost of building a PC with equivalent performance. That was before the memory market went sideways. Now, with the Steam Deck price hike, the DRAM situation, and the rest of the PC hardware market, I am still expecting something more in that $800 to $1,000 range, maybe even higher for the bigger storage model or a full bundle. That is not confirmed. That is just where the market seems to be pointing at right now. And that number completely changes the pitch. So at $500 to $600, the Steam Machine is a real console alternative. At $800 to $1,000, it becomes a premium SteamOS box for people who already know that they want their Steam games in the living room. That can still be a great product, but it is totally a different product, right? The real appeal of the Steam Machine is not that it destroys every console on a spec sheet. The appeal is convenience. So SteamOS on the TV, your Steam library in the living room, cloud saves from your Steam Deck, a controller-first experience, no Windows updates, no keyboard sitting on the couch just to wake up the PC. That is the dream version of this thing. And if Valve nails that, A lot of people are still going to want this, even if the price is higher than we hoped. Now, the verified update itself is actually worth talking about, because it sounds boring on the surface, but it really matters for a living room PC. Valve is basically trying to tell players, here's what should work cleanly out of the box. And that matters because the Steam Machine is still a PC. It is not a closed console. You are still dealing with launchers, settings, Proton, anti-cheat, and all kinds of weird edge cases. But this is also where I want Valve to be a lot clearer, right? Steam Deck Verified has been useful, but it has never been perfect. Some games marked verified still feel very rough. Some technically run, but not the way a normal person expects it to. So with Steam Machine Verified, my question is pretty simple. So what does that badge actually promise? Is it 1080p? Is it 1440p? Is it 4K with upscaling? Is it 30 frames or 60? Or is it just default settings and controller support? And you basically figure the rest out. That matters way more on a TV than it ever did on a handheld, because the Steam Deck has clear expectations. It is small, it is portable. People accept 800p, lower settings, 30 to 45 frames, and a little tweaking on a handheld, but the Steam Machine is going right next to a PS5 and Xbox, maybe a Switch 2, maybe a full gaming PC. So the expectations are not to be the same at all. Valve has said that the Steam Machine is roughly 6 times more powerful than the Steam Deck. And that sounds great until you actually remember that the Steam Machine is targeting 4K, which is way more pixels than that Steam Deck screen. And that is why upscaling matters so much here. And this is where it actually gets good. So AMD just confirmed that FSR 4.1 is coming to RDNA 3 GPUs in July, with over 300 games supported at launch. The Steam Machine uses a dedicated semi-custom RDNA 3 GPU, so it should absolutely get this support. And that timing actually lines up almost perfectly with the summer window. So if Valve launches in late July or August, that would be launching right alongside a major upscaling upgrade that makes the 4K pitch way more believable. But I still want to see some real gameplay, not best case clips, not older games, not modern AAA games, default settings on a normal TV with a frame rate visible. That is the moment this whole thing actually becomes real. I am not going to get super deep on the Steam frame here, because honestly, the Steam Machine is what I care about more. But the Steam Frame Verified bucket does make sense. So VR has different problems. Text readability matters way more, resolution matters more, and frame rate matters way more. So just because it feels bad, it is not just annoying, right? It can actually make people feel sick. So separating Steam Deck, Steam Machine, and Steam Frame into different verification buckets is actually the right call for Steam. They're just not the same type of device. Now, the timing here is the weird part. So if Valve had launched right after the original announcement, the moment would have been massive, right? People were excited, SteamOS was on a roll, Steam Deck had built real trust. But the longer this drags on, the more the conversation shifts from I want one to how much is this thing actually going to cost? And that is not a great place to be. At the same time, I do not think that waiting is automatically the wrong move here. So if the choice is launching sooner at a price that makes people angry, or waiting a little bit longer to hit a better number, then the wait probably makes a lot more sense. Because once you launch at a bad price, that is basically the whole story. You can drop the price later, but the first impression sticks. And we pretty much have seen that with consoles before. People remember that expensive launch way more than they remember the price correction. So if Valve is buying time to avoid that, then I honestly get it. I don't love it, but I get it, right? The other thing that I want to say is that Valve does not need to sell like a PlayStation. The Steam Machine does not have to do 80 million units to actually matter. So Valve wants SteamOS in more places. They want more people buying Steam games. They want less dependence on Windows. And if some people actually end up building their own SteamOS PCs because of this, I do not think that Valve is heartbroken about that either. So if you build your own living room PC, install SteamOS, and keep buying games on Steam, then I think that Valve still wins in a different way. So the official Steam Machine is for the person who just wants that experience without building their own, right? You plug it in, you sign in, and you start playing. And for that person, polish matters way more than the spec sheet. So my honest take is this, guys. So this update is good, but it is incomplete. Summer 2026 is a real window, and that is better than silence. But it leaves a lot of room. So we still need that date, we still need the price, we still need the pre-order details, and we still need a clear picture of whether the Steam controller is bundled with this device or if it's sold separately. or how that whole pricing works. Plus, we need real gameplay that actually shows what the Steam Machine is capable of. I am still pretty excited. I still want this product to work. The idea of a clean SteamOS living room box just makes a lot of sense to me, but I am bracing for that price because if this lands near $1,000, the internet is going to explode for a couple of days, and then honestly, it might still sell out. That is the funny part. The first wave is probably going to be totally fine. The real test is what happens after the hardcore Steam crowd gets their own, right? So does this become a normal living room option for a wider audience? Or does it actually stay a premium niche box for the most dedicated Steam people? That is the real question. So I want to know where you guys are at on this. If the Steam Machine really is coming this summer, what is the highest price you are willing to pay for it? Is it $600, $800, $1,000? Or are you out the second this thing gets anywhere near full PC pricing? Drop a comment below, guys, and let me know where your line is. For more gaming commentary, Steam Machine coverage, and SteamOS updates, check out Saavedra.com, and I will link the articles down below. And if you want more videos like this, make sure to subscribe, because I am definitely going to keep following this until Valve finally gives us a date and price. I will catch you all in the next one.